Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is glint. And this verb was suggested by the viewer Artem. Artem, I'm so grateful for your suggestion. Now, let's take a moment and review some of the definitions or the ways that we can use this verb. The first way you are most likely to encounter this verb being used is to mean to give out or to reflect small flashes of light. I believe this suggestion came from an earlier video, maybe sparkle. That would be another similar verb here. So kind of imagine little light glancing off something. A second way you may encounter the verb glint could mean to appear briefly or faintly. And then a third way would be to look quickly or briefly. Those second and third definitions not nearly as common as the first. Now, you should know that glint is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing, and that forms glinting. The past tense and the participle form of our verb can be made by adding ed. Now, the base verb, glint, ends with a T sound. So when I add the ed ending, I'm going to add an extra syllable to this verb. I'm going to make an id sound. The past tense and the participle form of the verb should sound like this: glinted, glinted. I hope you can hear that id sound. Now, there is a phrasal verb you might encounter, and that is to glint with. And this can mean for something to shimmer or to twinkle with something. So again, that idea of little bits of light kind of reflecting and bouncing. So an example of this: the diamond necklace glinted with sunlight. So kind of means it's shimmering and twinkling maybe even more than in just a natural circumstance. But the sunlight is causing this more significant or noticeable shimmer or twinkle. Now let's move on and do a little verb tense practice. Today I thought we would review the past progressive and the present perfect. Let's start with the past progressive. Sometimes textbooks or teachers, maybe other YouTube videos, will call this verb tense the past continuous, and it's just fine. Past progressive, past continuous, it all means the same thing. In this verb tense, we are trying to describe an action that was ongoing or that was continuing during some point in the past. The reason I like saying past progressive with my students is I try and help them remember 2 P's means we're going to have 2 parts to our verb. We're going to use a past form of be, and then we'll use the ing form of the verb. Now, be has 2 forms in the past tense. So this is a verb tense where we have to pay attention to our subject. If our subject is I, he, she, or it, we'll use was and then the ing form of the verb. But if our subject is you, we, or they, we'll use were, W-E-R-E, and then that ing form of the verb. Let's take a look at our first example. It says, blue, red, and green lights flashed distantly. As they got closer, people could see they were glinting off construction vehicles covered in holiday decorations. So, as I looked for real examples of this verb being used, I would say I ran into or found many usages in literature. So, one's trying to be very descriptive and again, describe some type of light reflecting and what people are viewing or how they're observing it. So here it's the lights, so that's why you see were glinting off the vehicles. Now let's talk about making a negative past progressive sentence. To do this, again, pay attention to your subject. You'll use either was or were, whatever form matches that subject. Then use not, and then the ing form of the verb. You can combine was not into the contraction wasn't, Or you could combine were not into the contraction weren't. Here's another example. The water was darker than I'd seen, probably because the sun wasn't glinting through it at full capacity yet. So again, we're talking about reflecting light off of water. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the past progressive. To do this, you want to start with a form of be, and you're going to pick the form that matches your subject. That subject comes next. Then you'll use that ing form of the verb. Here's another example. Was any gold glinting as they dug? So here, maybe this is someone who's kind of treasure hunting, searching for gold or some other kind of valuable thing, and they're looking for maybe sunlight again to reflect off and cause that shimmer or sparkle. Now let's move on and make some sentences in the present perfect. There are a couple different reasons we could use the present perfect verb tense. Sometimes we will describe a completed action that occurred at an unknown point in the past. Or we can use this verb tense to talk about an action that started in the past, but it continues into the present. You'll notice with present perfect, we have two P's again, and once again, you're going to need to make have two parts in order to form your verb. In this verb tense, we'll be using a present form of have, and then we'll be using the participle form of our verb. And because glint is a regular verb, our participle looks the same as the past tense. Okay? Now, the present form of have has two forms. So again, we've got to pay attention to our subject. If our subject is I, you, we, or they, we'll use have and then our participle. But if our subject is he, she, or it, we'll use has and then the participle. Let's take a look at an example. The aging cyclist was finally able to fulfill the promise which has glinted from behind strings of bad luck crashes in recent years. So this sentence, I would say, would tie back more to our second definition for something to appear briefly. So really what this is trying to describe is like somebody seemed kind of like this sparkly, talented thing, and that promise or that hope would appear briefly, but then the athlete would have a bad accident and not be able to compete. However, this sentence also indicates it has kind of a positive ending here. It was describing someone who was ultimately able to win a very competitive cycling competition. Now let's take a look at making a negative present perfect sentence. To do this, again, pay attention to your subject. You'll use either have or has, followed by not, and then our participle form of the verb. An example of this. The old sparkly play shoes haven't glinted in years. So here maybe you can imagine some kind of dress up or special play things a child might have, but perhaps they've been left in a corner in a box. They're covering dust, right? We're not getting that kind of shimmery, sparkly action occurring with them any longer. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the present perfect. To do this, you want to start with have or has, followed by the subject, and then use the participle form of the verb. Here's another example. Has her hairpin glinted in the sunlight? Right? So it might be an example of sort of asking at any point in the past leading up to this moment of the question. Now let's move on, and we're going to talk about a related word and a phrase today. Let's start with the noun form of our verb. So the noun glint has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation as our verb. When we use this word as a noun, we're referring to a small flash of light, especially if it's being reflected from some type of shiny surface. An example of this might be, Images will contain at least one bright streak or glint from the satellites orbiting. So here, again, we're talking about kind of a brief flash of light. This is not like a bright light that is shined and stays on for a long period of time. One more phrase you might encounter. You might see something describing a glint in someone's eye, or could be eyes. Sometimes it's singular, sometimes it's plural. And instead of one's eye, sometimes you'll see a possessive adjective there. His eyes, her eyes, etc. So when you encounter this phrase, what someone's describing is a brief expression that indicates some kind of secret. Maybe it's a secret emotion, a secret idea, a plan, something like that. But it's sort of communicating this secretive feeling or idea. So an example of how you might hear this use. I get nervous every time I see a glint in his eyes. What is he up to now? Right? So this might be a parent, maybe a teacher, kind of thinking, oh, this person's a little mischievous. What is this person planning? That is a phrase you might encounter again, maybe more in literature, trying to describe that special look that some people occasionally get. Thanks again to Artem for suggesting today's verb. I thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.